Well, good day and welcome to another Mongrel Dog production, and welcome to the Munda Biddi Trail. Munda Biddi, translated from the local Aboriginal Noongar people, means path through the forest, and that's just what this is, a 1,000 kilometre off-road cycling trail starting from Mundaring, just east of Perth, snaking its way through the forest and ending up at Albany in the greater southwest. Now you just know that parts of this are going to be tough, and you know that parts of this are going to be challenging. Having said that, it'll also be very rewarding. Trevor's going to join me for the first week. He's then got to return to Perth for work. Anyway, grab your gear. Let's go.
Always were a dreamer as a child. Every night I watch the stars hoping for a sign. My father said, come down to earth, my son. But in my heart I knew there's something more out there. So follow me, just follow me. Yeah, follow me to another world. So follow me, just follow me. Yeah, follow me to another world.
Well, end of the first day. It's been tough today, and I knew that going in. The first two maps they say is pretty tough going. That's, I don't know, 200 kilometres. But I knew today was going to be tough, and it was. I mean, there was a couple of times there where Trevor and I had to walk. In fact, many times we had to walk, and at one stage Trevor had to help me push the trailer up a hill because it was so steep. That's the only disadvantage towing that trailer. Yeah, it's a mongrel if you've got to get off and walk. That aside, first campsite, Carinya, about 40 kilometres in. These campsites pretty much are standard. A shelter obviously for sleeping. You could probably sleep, I don't know, 24 people in there if you had to. A place to store the bikes, water tanks, a long drop dunny. Pretty comfortable really, considering that we are out in the bush. But it does get cold, of course. Tomorrow we hope to be at Jarrahdale. That'll be in accommodation. It's I don't know, a hostel type setup there. We'll have access to a kitchen and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, about 60 kilometres tomorrow. That could be a tough day, I think. Yesterday being the first day, within about 3 kilometres of the start, I ended up getting a puncture in the rear tyre. Tiny thorn, no big deal, but you just don't expect that sort of thing when you first set off. Anyway, that aside, while we were waiting, or while I was repairing the tyre, we had a small group of boys overtake us. I don't know, 14, 15-year-olds, about 4 of them. Music blaring as they're making their way through the bush. A couple of kilometres later, we come across the same bunch of boys. Only this time the lead rider had crashed pretty hard. Hit a wash away, a deep wash away. Tore the front end of his bike off, and of course he went over the handlebars, so he was a bit sore and sorry, and I guess that was the end of their particular trip. All through this neck of the woods, they're doing a lot of prescribed burning to keep the fuel load down for the bushfire season. So occasionally we'll come across a road closure or a track closure, and they divert us around, usually down, reasonably good formed gravel roads, which is what we're doing at the moment.
Don't you wanna lose that ball and chain?
Well, a rough start to the beginning of day 3, entering the Jarrahdale Serpentine National Park. Had a big breakfast, and yeah, some loose gravel, uphill, quite steep. But they told me that this should be the last of the worst parts of it by the end of today. Yeah, we continue to climb out of the valley. I've just pulled over to do a nav check to find out exactly where we are. The track has 3 gradings, easy, sort of moderate and challenging, and this part is obviously challenging. Yeah, difficult going, really difficult going, for us anyway. Well, still day 3, early afternoon, and bugger me dead, second puncture for the trip, this time in the front. I don't know, probably a sharp stone or something like that. Anyway, swap the tube out, I'll repair that tube tonight.
Climb over the walls and see what lays beyond. You just gotta reach out and grab my hand. Together we can make it to a paradise. Follow me, just follow me. Yeah, follow me to another world. So follow me, just follow me. Yeah, follow me to another world. To another world.
Well, we're riding along the Murray River. There's 2 Murray Rivers here in Australia, one on the east coast and one here in southwest WA. This one's a lot smaller, of course, and I just keep thinking in the background that I'm hearing dueling banjos. And for those who don't know what I'm talking about, just do a Google search, dueling banjos or deliverance. Yeah, I can feel the hair on the back of my neck standing up already.
Talk about genetic deficiencies. Not pitiful. Who's picking a banjo here?
Well, and at day 5, we're staying at another hut, Binjar Noolan, this one's called. Certainly got easier today after about noon, and we knew that was going to happen. We've been following some of the old railway forms. That is where the railway line used to be back in the day of the timber cutting era. So yeah, gentle gradients up or down, although it was a bit tough this morning. The wildflowers are certainly in full bloom, which is nice. And we were following the Murray River for a little while there too, which was a nice change. Tough day today for a number of reasons. Firstly, it was supposed to be about 77 kilometres. We had to make it a big leg today because typically Trevor has to get somewhere to catch a bus or whatever home because he's got to go back to work, and that's in a day or two. So yeah, big leg today. That plus it's been drizzling with rain, sometimes a little bit heavier than that all morning, and in fact even up until now, early afternoon. We tried to make up a bit of time by taking some of the main tracks or the roads. That worked to some degree, but also made navigation a bit difficult. Anyway, we're here now. We're wet through the bone. We'll get some warm clothes on, have a cup of tea or coffee, and take it from there, I guess. Oh, certainly glad yesterday's over. Easy day today for sure. Last day for Trevor. We're going to Collie and tomorrow morning he'll catch a bus back to Perth. Shoes are still wet, of course, as you would expect. Yeah, the undies are still damp, but should be an easy day. Clear, relatively clear skies this morning, bit of cloud, but hopefully we'll get through the day without any rain. That'll be a nice change. Well, day 8 for me. Trevor had to return to Perth. He has to return to work tomorrow, so he's caught a connecting bus from Collie through to Bunbury and then on to Perth, so he'll be home by early afternoon today. Hopefully the conditions will become a little easier. We're well clear of the Darling Range now, so yeah, hopefully some of the ascents won't be so damn steep. Because I could do with a little less of that. Anyway, time for me to knuckle down, I guess, and get some kilometres under my belt. I should make better time. No criticism of Trevor, but yeah, I'm ready at 7 o'clock and he's getting out of bed at 7 o'clock. I'll miss his company. Well, I'm just about to roll in a Nannup. I left Donnybrook this morning. By the time I finished today, I would have done 70 kilometres, which has been my biggest day so far. Most blokes, my understanding is most riders do it in about 14, 15 days. I've allocated 20, I'm in no rush. I've got all the time in the world. So yeah, 20 days is what I think it'll take me. That's averaging about 50 k's a day. The last 25 kilometres today has been pretty good. It was I've been on a rail form where the rail network used to be back in the day. That was to haul timber from a lot of these towns that we go through, Nannup, Manjimup, Northcliffe, Pemberton. All those towns supported a mill, and of course the rail network got the timber from the mill, in most cases to Busselton for export, I guess. But, yeah, lots of sign of the old rail line, dog spikes, certainly a lot of sleepers, and in some cases railway line itself. But yeah, it's relatively level, cleared, mostly single track, but that's okay. Tough conditions today, strong cold headwind earlier, and the forecast was for rain, and I was hoping I'd make shelter before that, but didn't happen. It's been raining consistently now for a couple of hours. Bummer. Real mixed bag of track conditions too, a lot of single track with overgrown vegetation and a few obstacles to cross along the way. But, yeah, difficult going in a lot of places. Well, you meet some interesting and unusual people on the trail, and last night and this morning was no different. Bumped into a couple of blokes, Anthony and Alan, both who have been good friends for many, many years, also doing the trail. They're going from south to north. And Alan had a bike of which I've not quite seen before in my life. Most unusual looking species. Having said that, it's gotten him to a lot of different places, as had Anthony's. Anthony and Alan were both going to do the Simpson Desert Crossing unsupported next year, so I wish them well. But, yeah, interesting folk, interesting people. Just a little bit crazy, but I think most of us have to be just a little bit crazy to do some of the things we do. But yeah, interesting and stimulating conversation. Well, within striking distance now of the southern terminus of the Munda Biddi. That's in Albany. I'm only a few kilometres outside of the town now, and it's about these times that I feel a tinge of regret because it's coming to an end. But having said that, also a tinge of relief because it's coming to an end. Really, I guess the only other thing I've got to do now is catch the bus back to Perth tomorrow, and I guess the day after that it'll be the same old grind but a different kind. See you on the other side.